So next I'd like to introduce Evelyn and Nguyen of Canal Circle. And they were so gracious as to provide the refreshments and the beautiful lunches everyone's enjoyed. So please take it away.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you everyone for being here today. It's the Labor Day weekend, so it's great that we have like a almost full audience today. So the food today is actually not from us. It's actually from a startup here in the area. It's called Evelyn. So they are super nice to provide us with a lot of food, and the founder of the startup is going to come in a few minutes. So I would like to bring him to the stage in a few minutes to talk about his startup really quickly. And before I start, I want to say a few thank you to first Chris and Jeff for hosting the event today. I'd like to thank Surek from the Den for giving us this wonderful space. And thank you Professor Lee from coming all the way from Singapore to be part of the meetup with us. So the project I'd like to present today is called Canal Circle. And we are working on creating a platform for portable credit profile and global fund mobilization using the blockchain. So a little bit about myself. This is a picture of me in a rambutan field in Vietnam. This is in one of the field trips that we took in the rural area of Vietnam to basically really be able to understand and interview farmers in the area and understand their needs about financing. Have anyone here tried rambutan or know what it is?
Yes.
Okay. So for the one who doesn't know what it is, just write out the name. And there's an Asian supermarket just 5 minutes of drive from here. It's called 99 Ranch. You can get it from there. It's a very, very interesting food. Okay, our mission is to bring life-changing opportunities to farmers through finance and technology. So the key here is a combination of finance and technology, because what we see as we talk and interview with a lot of farmers in Vietnam is that a lot of time they may get access to funding, but they don't know really how to use that funding really well. They cannot get access to the right input, the right fertilizer, or the right seed. So for us, giving them finance is not enough. It has to come with education as well. And that combination will help to break the vicious circles that a lot of farmers in a lot of places in developing countries are in right now. So because they have a low income, they cannot have enough money or investment into upgrading their technology or their farming practices. And because of that, they have really low productivity and low yield that leads to low credit, that they cannot get access to finance, informal financial institutions. So giving them access to finance and technology will hopefully help them to break out of these circles. This is a chart that shows the distribution of unbanked people in the world. So globally, we have 1.7 billion unbanked adults in the world, and we can see a lot of big dots in the Asia and ASEAN area. So in ASEAN alone, we have 500 million unbanked. That account for around 30% of the global unbanked. And in ASEAN, there are less than 30% of people having a bank account. That is a very, surprising stat, because here in the US, almost everyone has a bank account, right? But in ASEAN, less than 30% of adults have a bank account. And if we look at businesses as well, less than 33% of them has a bank account. In terms of the credit gap among individuals in ASEAN is almost $100 billion. So credit gap meaning the number of people who want to get a loan but couldn't get it. And most of them are right now getting loans through informal channels, such as pawn shops or loan shark or things like that. And they have to suffer really, really high interest rate. So now it could get to between 200 to 400% a year for the interest rate. If we look at the credit gap for small businesses, it's almost $300 billion. So there's a huge unmet need here in this area. So how do this segment of the market get credit right now? So as I said, they either go to the informal channel and suffer from really high interest rate, or they can go to microfinance institutions. Most of these institutions are started through NGOs from developed market coming to those areas and start the institutions. And they usually fund those institutions with an amount of money at the beginning. And together they offer training so that the staff in those institutions can basically conduct the work as the NGO leave the country. So MFIs are better than traditional banks in offering credit to the poor because they deploy some very interesting and innovative devices such as group lending, group lending with self-monitoring, progressive loans, short repayment instruments, training and human capital development, and doorstep services. So most of these services are done by staff who are actually farmers as well and who are also living in the same areas with the customer that they serve. The problem with MFIs, however, is first the limited use of technology. A lot of MFIs that we visit in Vietnam are actually still using a paper ledger where they have a thick notebook, they document everything in there, and they have basically people handing cash, carrying a big bag of cash and giving it out to borrowers every day, every start of the month, and then they also go around every end of the month to collect the interest payment in cash. So because of this limited use of technology, they don't have really a good way to collect data. So they give us a thick notebook that they collect data about the operation for the past 20 years. And it was like, how are we going to make sense of these data? And we actually have to hire a lot of interns to kind of digitize those data to be able to understand the trend in those data. So they have limited use of technologies that lead to silo operation. They cannot really share data with one another. They cannot really do data analytics. And that limits their operation and limits their ability to scale. And also it hurts their borrowers as well, because a lot of borrowers are right now borrowing from multiple MFIs at the same time, and the MFIs don't really know about that. So those people actually get into a loop of indebtedness. The second problem that MFI has is the limited capital. So they started with a donation from the NGO that started them, or some amount of money that is a grant from the government. And then after a period of operation, they cannot really grow that amount of capital, even though they grow it through, I guess, interest payment collection. But that is not that growth is not fast enough for them to serve more people, and that basically leads to an existing gap in credit of almost $100 billion for individuals in those countries. And if we look at this chart, this is basically comparing the source of borrowed money between developed market and developing market. So we can see that in terms of the total size, in high-income economies, almost 80% of people get a loan of some sort somewhere. But in developing countries, that is less than 60%. And if you look at the category, most of the people from developing countries are getting loans from families and friends or sources that are not formal.
What is MFI?
MFIs is Microfinance Institutions. So these are institutions who give out small loans or microfinance services to the poor people. So Canal Circle, we are a platform for portable credit profiles, global fund mobilization, and best practice transfers aimed at the poor. So to the poor, we want to give them instant access to microloans and establishment of portable credit profiles, meaning as we give them microloans, we're going to help them to gradually build up their credit profiles as well, so that once they graduate from being really poor and can qualify for borrowing money from commercial banks, they can use this credit profile to hopefully give them a better, better chance to get those bigger loans. And then for donors and investors who want to help this segment of the market, we're going to give them a better and easier reach to the poor in a more transparent and accountable way. To everyone, we basically giving them, a full package of solution to help the poor that comes from both finance and best practice transfer, so that we can make sure that the poor can use this capital in the best possible way. So this is the app that we have designed and about to launch in the Long An province in Vietnam. We call it the Party app. It's because in this province in Vietnam, the type of crop that they grow the most is rice. So through this app, the farmers can get access to a loan within a microloans within a few minutes. They can get their loan delivered to them through their mobile wallets. They can also pay interest payment through the wallet as well. And also within this app, they can get farming best practices delivered to them in a very easy to digest format. So if we look at the whole loan underwriting process as it is right now, we basically kind of replacing, or I guess digitizing a lot of these steps in the process. So in the KYC and credit assessment, we are going to replace it with alternative credit scoring model. So this model we built based on data that we can collect from their phones, and also we're gonna layer in advantages of the group lending models that has been working very well in that regions. So the group lending models is that people are actually grouped into a group of 5, and then at the beginning of the month, each of them can get a loan, but they have to basically co-sign for those loans, meaning if one person cannot pay, the other remaining people have to pay for that person. And that has been working really well for the poor who don't have any source of collateral, because they mostly live in a very clustered area. They all know each other. They are from the same village. So their social capital, I guess the peer pressure is one of the, I guess, very reliable way to make sure that they repay the loan. So in our app, we kind of we have a mechanism to speed up that group farming process, so that instead of having to spend, I guess, almost a week to form a group of 5, they can form a group of 5 within a few minutes on the app. And on the loan delivery, right now all of the loans are delivered in cash, and the interest payment are collected in cash as well. We are partnering with banks who have banks and telcos who have shops across the rural areas to help deliver the loans in a digital way on the mobile wallets. And we are also building something we call the Party Credit Score. This serves as the reputation mechanism in the app, so that people who repay the loan on time or who help refer good borrowers gonna be able to build a better credit score over time, and that will help them to get better loans over time and get a bigger loans at commercial banks later. And we're also combining that with personalized farming best practices. For this, we are collaborating with Agricultural Institute in Vietnam to help them deliver tailored tips and advices on what type of crops they should grow in these particular areas, or for particular crops, what they should do to have the highest yield. And everything's going to be delivered in either messaging format or video format through the app. So this is on the global fund mobilization aspect of what we are doing. So on this on the right-hand side, you have the apps, and that's going to be used by the farmers. On the left-hand side, you have NGOs, aid organizations, impact funds, wealthy individuals, or peer-to-peer. So these are the sources that we identify at this point who are very willing to help and either give the loan or give the funding to poor farmers in this region. However, one of the things that they are, I guess, is the roadblock for them for doing this thing is the transparency and the accountability in the way aid money is given. So through this platform, with the blockchain technology and with the mobile app at the hand of every farmers, we're hoping to give more transparency, accountability to these investors. And because of that, we hope to be able to expand the amount of fund or aid that is available to this group of the market. And this is going to also provide an arbitrage opportunity for investors in other countries as well. Because if we look at, I'm going to have a slide that talk about the interest rate for these microloans in developing country. And that is usually on average much higher than what investor can get from offering loans, or even the interest rate you can get from investing in the stock market in developed market. In terms of technology, So we hope to basically use public blockchain like Ethereum to mobilize funds from cross-border so that we can make it much faster and low cost for investors to invest money. And once it gets into our blockchain network, we're gonna basically transfer it to each of the local blockchain depending on where the farmers are. So each local blockchain represent a blockchain in a certain geographic area. For example, Vietnam gonna have one blockchain, or Philippines gonna have one, Indonesia gonna have one. So this account for the currency rate in each of the different locations. And this local blockchain gonna have the function of collecting data of the users in that local areas. And anyone who want to access those data are going to have to basically get permission to access to data in this blockchain. So why do we think this is a good time for a project like this? So we see in Southeast Asia, or especially I guess in Asia at this point, there's a convergence of technology, international and governmental policies. In terms of technology, there's a really high smartphone usage among the poor in Asia right now. And we also see blockchain growing or maturing as the platform for global financial integration. We see a growing source of impact capital waiting on the sideline to find out the best way to reach the poor in developing country. And also we see a lot of support from local and international organizations. So a few examples for these are in Vietnam, for example, starting in 2016, they actually have a brand new ID system that works just like the social security system in the US. So that served as the foundation to create a credit profile for each person in Vietnam. Another example is the World Bank actually recently announced issuance of a bond on the blockchain to help raising funds for sustainable development across the world. So this is the pilot that we have in progress right now in the Long An province in Vietnam. So that province is the area in red toward the bottom of the map. So that province has a really strategic location for us because it sits right in the area, in the middle of the area with a lot of agricultures and farmers in Vietnam. And from there, and it borders Cambodia as well. So from there, we can really kind of expand upward to Cambodia, Thailand, Myanmar, and Laos. So our revenue model is interest payment, paper access for the credit profile data, lead generation for commercial banks who want to access to this group of farmers who are who are doing better and better over time in economics. And also, we're going to cross-sell different farmer-focused products like insurance, agriculture inputs, agriculture equipment, and low-cost household products. This is the market opportunity in ASEAN. If we look at the credit gap among individuals, it's almost $100 billion. And credit gaps among small, medium-sized enterprise is almost $200 billion. So a lot of these farmers that we are serving right now, as they improve their financial status, a lot of them are becoming small business owners. So we hope to be able to expand to that market over time. And if we look at the interest rate that microfinance institutions are charging for microloans in those areas, in Vietnam is 10 to 25%. In Cambodia and Philippines, it's 35 to 45%. In Myanmar, it's even higher, 60 to 81%. So that's why we think this is a arbitrage opportunity for investors abroad who are looking to not only make a nice return, but also helping people in developing countries. In terms of partners, we are partnering with a few agriculture institutes in Vietnam. We are partnering with the Vietnam Academy of Science and Technology. This is the highest academy in Vietnam for technology and science. We're partnering with the Microfinance Institution in Long An province of Vietnam. There are NGOs in the US who are funding us to help us get the pilot going. So they are not funding our company directly, but they are funding the money for us to lend out to farmers in that area through our technology. And we are partnering with the fourth largest telco in Vietnam. It's going to help us to start collecting mobile payment data prepaid data to help us form a better credit profile for those farmers. And we're also partnering with the largest agriculture-focused bank in Vietnam to deliver this loan in digital format. Okay, so that concludes my presentation. I have my two other co-founders here today as well, my CTO and he, the chairman of our company. So we really hope to stay in touch and hope to be able to connect with you guys at the networking event afterward.
So please, any questions?
Okay. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, please.
I already asked one.
All right. Okay, great.
So you, Evelyn, you said that you're considering the farmers that you're targeting initially to be in the individual category as opposed to the SME category, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm just curious why you chose to start with that category instead of. Seems like it might be more lucrative to go for SMEs, but why did you start here?
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Could you repeat the question for those who are
Yeah, sure. So the question from Eric is that, Aaron, is that so there we see the credit gap between among individuals and also small and medium-sized enterprise. So why did we decide to start with individuals instead of the businesses, even though that may seem to be more lucrative? So I guess the answer for us is really we want to start with who brought us the most motivation and inspiration. So as we visited Vietnam half a year ago, we had the chance to talk with the farmers in those areas, and the picture in the rambutan field is where we had a lot of conversation about how they can improve their production and what type of equipment do they need. And I remember one of the questions we asked people there is, why don't you drill a well to get cleaner water? Because we see them bringing really dirty water from the river to just water the plant directly. And they told us that it cost them $50 to drill a well, and they couldn't afford it. So we feel like $50 in the US is it's a small amount for a lot of people, but for people in developing countries, it's actually a huge amount that could really help them to jumpstart their business. So that's why we decided to start from there and expand from there, because we want to grow with the farmers. A lot of them are small, and over time, they're going to start being business owners. So we guess we can help growing together with them and also help them to build a credit profile from the start.
You mentioned that the small micro loan company cannot really sustain because just by collecting interest. And at Vietnam is 10 to 25%. And I look at your revenue sources, it seems to be that it's still pretty big, right? So the question is, if they cannot do it themselves, why do you think you can sustain your existing just by micro loan?
Yeah, very good question. So I guess the point I wanted to make is that they couldn't expand their business, but they are actually doing pretty well in a stable way. So for example, the one that we are working with in Long An, they got back then was 2 billion Vietnam dong, meaning it's about $100,000. And since then they have grew the capital to $500,000, subtracting all of the cost of operation. So they are doing well financially, and they can sustain themselves, but they cannot have money to expand, to give out more loan to people. So they've been serving, I guess initially they served 2,000 households, and now they are serving 5,000 households. And they wanted to be able to serve more farmers in the area, but they don't have enough capital. Because if they serve more people, then the amount of loan that they can give to one individual is going to be lower, and that wouldn't be enough.
So it will be the same for you guys too, except for more donation. So the question is, how do you get more money?
Yeah, so for us, in terms of our operation, the interest payment is enough to cover the operation. And for us, we're going to be able to access funding from abroad. So one of the issues with those MFI is that they don't have a marketing arm. So they get an initial donation at the beginning, which is a one-time donation, and they don't have any way to get more donation because of, I guess, distance is one of the factors, and also language and the ability to get in touch with people abroad. So we guess among our team, since we have the ability and the chance, and I guess we are fortunate enough to get access to developed market, so we could play the role of being a marketing arm for them and helping them to grow more funding. from organization abroad.
And final question, not totally related. What do you think the long-term impact will be for the global warming? That is going to cause the water rise, the flood, and then maybe basically contaminate the water source for the rice field.
Yeah, no.
You can repeat that.
Yeah, so the question is a very interesting and good question. So the question is, what do we think about the global warming situation that's going to increase the water level and contaminate the rice field? So that is actually a huge, debate topics in Vietnam agriculture sector right now, because we are a country that is very reliant on agriculture. And long time ago, they used to be able to just put the seed into the soil and it just grow. They don't have to put anything, but over time the soil degraded, and also the climate change become very, very, it changed the weather changed very abruptly. So there's a lot of things that they have to do to be able to do better in agriculture, meaning upgrading the technology, putting the right fertilizer into the soils. So all of those things need funding and knowledge to do the right thing. So we hope to be able to help the farmers and also indirectly helping them to adopt better farming practice and being able to, preserve the ecosystem and the environment, because our country also relies a lot on the environment to be able to do agriculture as well. So it's basically going to be helping the farmers and helping the ecosystem and the environment at the same time.
Just a quick question. So, what is the role of blockchain in all this? Why is it being necessary in the moment that this is right on?
Yeah, definitely. So, we can definitely build something like this using existing technology or centralized database. But what we see in terms of the global trend in aid and donations is that there's increasing interest among global donors to adopt blockchains to be a cross-border money transfer mechanism, and also a mechanism to make sure that the fund is used in a transparent way and it reaches the right target. For example, we see World Bank has the project of issuing bonds on the blockchain, and we also see UN having the project of using blockchains to deliver aid to Africa, and also deliver aid to people, to places that have natural disasters. So we hope to be able to use the blockchain to ensure transparency, accountability, and because of that, be able to attract more global funding. And also that has the cost efficiency as we transfer money overseas using the blockchain as well, at much lower cost. On the side of the users, right now, we can definitely use a centralized database to collect their data as well, but that will make us become basically us owning their data. And eventually what we wanted to do is be able to make people owning their own data in a democratized way. So on the blockchain, we can have permission access so that everyone actually owns their credit profile, and it's portable so that wherever they go, they can use that credit profile to apply for loans. And that belongs to them, and they own that credit profile. So that's really, the reason behind.
Do you see any issues related to government regulations? Real from is the cryptocurrencies can be do you see any issues moving from dollars to cryptocurrency and again going back to local currency?
I see. Yeah. So the question is that is any problem with converting from cryptocurrencies to the local currency? That could be an issue. From what we see, that could be an issue for microtransaction. If we have to do that many times. So if someone sends a small amount, we have to do the conversions. That would be a lot of work. But initially, we wanted to start with attracting investment from organizations. So that's going to come as a large amount and basically once in a while. So in those cases, we can do conversion easily. But over time, we really hope that at some point, if we're going to move, all our currency on the blockchain, then we can really move downward. I have this slide where we can basically make this a peer-to-peer donation as well. So anyone can donate to people in developing countries on the blockchain, and the fund gonna go directly from one person to the other person in the developing countries. That would be really the end, the ultimate goal.
Are you using like Ethereum as a currency for that? But in that case, the follow-up question is, how does the volatility in Ethereum affect your business model so that a person, let's say, assuming it goes down, if it goes up, everyone is happy, obviously. But if it goes down or if there are just fluctuations, how does that impact your overall business model?
Yeah, thank you for the question. The question is, since we rely on Ethereum to transfer money, what would the fluctuation in Ethereum affect our business model? So the answer is that we use Ethereum to transfer money, and when it hit our blockchain, that's when we kind of lock in the transaction, and then we do the conversion right away. So right now, Ethereum block time is 10 minutes, I guess. So I mean, hopefully within those 2 minutes, the exchange rate doesn't fluctuate too much.
All right. Well,
Right.
thank you once again for